What do you feel like the world needs more of right now?
Oh, well, how could I not say love? How could I not say love? But I love that quote and I work with it a lot. Like, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do that because the world needs more people who have come alive. I believe we all incarnated for a reason, and it is our work to figure out what that reason is and allow it to evolve and then give it as generously as we possibly can because the world needs it. And if we all do that and we all get out of our own way, there will be nothing to fight over.
Welcome to Came Here to Love, a podcast hosted by me, Liz Logan, where we explore heart-centered conversations with visionary leaders from around the world. This podcast is a journey into wisdom, a path to transformation, and an invitation to catch the highest vibration of all, love.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Came Here to Love for another exciting episode. Get ready for this one. It's going to light some fire within you and get you excited about how to just live your best life. I am joined today by one of my new favorite people and humans in the world, Jayne Gottlieb, and she is in Aspen, Colorado. She's a spiritual consultant, a yoga, meditation, and embodied instructor, and a serial entrepreneurial. She owns Aspen Shakti, and she was named as one of Aspen's most influential women and the top local wellness leaders. She has dedicated over 2 decades to creating businesses that awaken individuals and communities to their unique brilliance, inspiring greatness in our world. I am so excited to have this conversation with her. As I told you, she owns Aspen Shakti, a center to fully alive living. And it is amazing what she does in that, along with her other instructors. She's established herself as a leading voice in the health and vitality industry. And she's also the mastermind behind the Alive Culture app, which is a revolutionary platform for humans seeking to connect and thrive by leading a positive legacy on the planet. Her expertise has been sought after by various studios and organizations across the country, including Wonderless, YPO, Women's Health, the U.S. Olympics and Paralympic Foundation, Aspen Ski Co., and the Aspen Institute. She has lived in Aspen for over 24 years and is literally one of the last standing local businesses. I am so excited to dive deep into this conversation. This is a human you are going to want to know and get excited because we're diving deep into all things fun to really live your most alive life. Welcome, Jayne.
I'm so happy to be here, Liz. It's such an honor, and just to support you and to see you supporting me. It's kind of what I'm all about. So thank you.
It's what it's all about in life. It's all about collaboration, and it's been really fun to be in collaboration with you in this creative flow of life and just awakening everyone and awakening ourselves. Like, you are such a teacher for me of, our sisterhood is really so beautiful about holding each other accountable to a higher version of ourselves. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you. Thank you for being that.
Yeah, ditto. I think that's big stuff.
It is. So, as you guys know, we start the episodes out with things that I'm loving, and then I ask my guests the same. So today it's funny. If you're watching this, you can see by my chest, I'm clearly loving the weather right now a little too much because I was out on a hike and got a little burnt. But I am loving being outside. I'm always in nature. That's just a part of my daily expression. But lately, I've been in my house in Colorado, and the weather has been insanely gorgeous. And the leaves are falling, and just being among the aspen trees and feeling the energy of that transformation happening from summer to fall and then into winter. It feels like it's matching my energy of this massive transformation I'm going through in my life. And so that's what I'm really, really loving. So I encourage you, if you haven't done it, go connect with nature. And one thing that I've been doing that's fairly new for me, I've been doing it a lot this summer. I'm not listening to anything. I'm not taking anyone with me to have a conversation. I'm literally in the voice of nature. And it has been so beautiful to hear. Like the other day I was on a hike. I take my dog. So that's a beautiful gift. But we were in amidst the aspen trees, And all of a sudden this gentle breeze came and I felt like I was in music because the way the leaves were rattling, it was like they were orchestrating this beautiful sound. And then they started falling like snowflakes, like all the leaves just at once. I mean, it was a beautiful golden rainfall.
Have you ever played that game where you just try to catch the leaves as they fall?
Yes. I used to play that.
I was reminiscing about when I first moved here and I was like, that game is a forever game. Like it's so much fun to run and chase and catch the falling leaves.
It's so fun. I was talking to another guest about leaf blowers and how they should be outlawed, right? And his comment was, "What's wrong with leaves anyways? Like why are we so against leaves?"
You know, that question actually makes me so happy because the other day, this is a tangent, but it makes sense. I was hiking in the woods too, being in nature. And, you know, you see this beautiful blanket of orange or yellow leaves. And I was like, well, nobody comes to like rake these away. Like these become the dirt. Like they literally become the dirt.
The compost,
so, thank goodness that nobody rakes them away, kind of a thing. You know, this is the dirt that we say we can't, that's dirt. Well, anyway, just kind of.
No, it's true.
And the cycle.
There's all a purpose. So that's what I'm loving right now. So what are you loving, Miss Jayne?
Thanks for sharing that. I can really sleep in the woods, and that makes that rejuvenates me. Nature is a really big one for me too. And living here, one of the things I find myself saying I'm grateful for on a daily basis is my proximity to nature because I really value it. It like brings me into coherence no matter what. You know, I was thinking about what I'm loving, and there's really two things. One of them is something I often love. I just love, and I have to bring it forward because I can't talk about it enough, but this practice called the Body Alive that I teach. But what is important to share is how much I love it. Like, is not only
love it, like love.
I can't get enough of it. Every time I show up, I get such a shower for the inside. I get such an experience of freedom and joy and learning who I am as I go, which is, it's just such a deeply incredible practice for me. And it brings a giant smile to my face with music and breath and community.
That's so awesome. Let's actually just dive right into it because I think our listeners will want to know about this Body Alive. And so Jayne has an amazing yoga studio in Aspen. I have to do a shout out for you because you've been in it, 20 years?
This specific studio, 10, but I have
10 years. Okay. 10 years. Yeah.
20.
But you've been teaching forever, but in Aspen, downtown Aspen, she is a local business owner in Aspen, which is going through a massive transformation into a corporate world, really sadly, because the rents are quite high. And so you've managed to keep this studio alive as your word, but also really rich in lessons and teachings and how to live a really full life. And I'm in awe of you because, I think those little mom and pops are not so much anymore. And so good for you to keep that going.
Thank you. I really I'm keeping it going because of the quality of life of how I get to engage with it, not because it's a thriving business. And it's just important to say that because part of the other piece of what I was going to say that I love is as I come into my wholeness more and more, which it will be a journey till the very last day I die. It's not like I'm just going to become whole one day, but in the process, it's excruciatingly uncomfortable to step more and more into wholeness and power, but it's so rewarding, if that makes sense. And so as it relates to the studio, it's really uncomfortable to live paycheck to paycheck, right? Not in a way where it's fruitful financially by having a business. That's not the reason you have business. However, I think the reason we do what we do and have business is to provide an existence that is meaningful and worthwhile and fulfilling on all the levels. And so that business is deeply fulfilling to my spirit. And, I'm working to bring things into balance, but
yeah. And it's really more, really, it should be a nonprofit because it really is about serving your community. It's really no different than a church in a lot of ways because you get that fulfillment from within. You learn richer, deeper lessons about yourself, and then you get to express outwardly into this world of mind, body, soul. And so, yeah, it's a full expression. And what you're doing is really giving back to the community. So in this new body alive that you've fallen into, I mean, it's like it birthed out of your gorgeous goddess of a body.
And I couldn't stop it.
And it's so fun to be a part of this. So this is a dance class. I'll let you explain it, but I'm just gonna talk through my experience with it. It's like mindfulness meets dance meets yoga intention meets just get all your energy rocking and moving and aligned. And it is one of the most liberating classes to take because it gives you permission to just be in the moment and do whatever the hell you want. And what I love most about how you've done the studio is Jayne built this beautiful stage with some lights and mirrors, but the focus is on the instructor. So the lighting is just on the instructor. And then that means that all the students aren't totally in the dark, but they're not focused on who's doing what, or you're looking in the mirror. Like so many yoga classes you go to, you just watch these people look at themselves the whole time and you're like, okay, you're kind of missing the point, but that's a different conversation. But I love the setup for it because it allows you to go so deeply in. It's like a flower. I feel like we go in and then just express out. This is how it feels to me, like a lotus flower. So anyways, explain to us what the inspiration was, how this came to be.
It's so much fun to hear yours. So thank you. I always love to hear how does this land? From my perspective, what it has become is very much like a sober, using music as the drug and your movement as the drug, ceremony of transformation. So it's held in a container in that way where you're really going on. I've been mimicking the hero's journey, point of arrival, the beginning, stepping into the unknown, finding momentum, finding your allies, your breath, the rhythm into a triumphant moment where you have stepped and experienced a part of yourself that you never really got consciously aware of before, into integration and prayer and just deep cathartic release, and then a coming home. So that's sort of the energetics of it.
And so when you're, this is not like, just because I know you and I know I've witnessed you in this class. This is not something you prepare. This is something that transfers through you. Would you say, like on a weekly basis, like it's a journey that you're not even sure where it's going before you get into it, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty wild in that way. And it's so transformational because of all the people in the room, but it is a blend of dance, of course, but the styles of dance are important in the rhythms, from African to hip hop to twerking to jazz to sometimes Latin and tango and capoeira based things and yoga movements and things that really pump blood through your system. So you get that vascular system going, and the class moves quick enough that the brain isn't trying to like compute and get choreography. It's just
totally. Thank God.
And expressing.
And it helps. I mean, it definitely helps to have an instructor look the way that you do and also move the way that you do, because honestly, I'm like in the back. I went with one of my guy friends, as you know, the last time we went, and I'm in the back and I'm just like, I got do as Jayne does. I just want to be Jayne in this hour, because the way you move, girl, I'm like, I don't know how you do it, but in my next life, I'm coming back with your dance moves.
Well, that's really sweet. But I learned because I watched and I mimicked other people. That's literally, which is where the power is. Anyway, the class is really designed to awaken your Shakti, your aliveness, your magnetism, your inner sparkle, your sense of pleasure and creation, energy, and bring it literally, like you move the hips, you move up.
You move parts of you that forgot to act. They can actually move that way. And you're like, oh
so much stagnation.
Yeah.
And you liberate, you literally shower the inside.
Yeah.
And you walk out so much lighter, clearer, connected to what is important in life. And
totally,
that is so much a piece of fully alive living. It's like, I feel fully alive when I'm connected to love, when I'm connected to the truth, to what is of truth and what is of love. And life fogs that up and I get confused as to what is truth and what is love. And then I have a practice, whatever practice that is. This one works really well for me. And I move the distraction, the fog away, and I can see clearly again where it feels aligned for me to put my life force. And that feels like an alive existence to me.
100%. And actually, I took your inspiration after, because what this does is it unlocks this playful side, right? That you're like, I got to keep this going. And so, by the way, Jayne is all over the world now. She's traveling. She's very sought after. She's kind of trying to figure out the balance in that. But she and I are going to do a retreat together. But these classes are also online, right? That you can drop in. Yeah,
they are, and they're a really good start. I mean, the magic is the alchemy of the room.
Of course.
Really is, but we do have some online, and that was a gift of COVID.
COVID taught us a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was funny. What I was going to say is that after my first class, I had my 8-year-old niece come for what we call veil camp.
So happy.
And she is like, I don't know who put this Buddha person in this body, but she is so enlightened. And we started every morning in the kitchen doing a T-Swift dance party. And it was awesome. And we were both just like, oh my God, this is the best part of our day. And we did it every day. And I was like, wow, this is so powerful to start with moving your body in that way. Because I think, and maybe we speak to this, but for me, like, I've studied yoga. I've done yoga for 25 years. No, I guess longer. I'm a little older than I really think I am. But I've done yoga for a long, long time. And I think in some cultures, I mean, of course, yoga is such a beautiful gift. And in some cultures, we've made it a perfection exercise or a perfection methodology where you go into a class and you have to have the right outfit and the right water bottle and the perfect hair
or you have to even be strong or fit. That is not yoga.
And that's not yoga. And that's not yoga. And so one, you teach yoga differently, which I really, really appreciate. And you bring back the roots and the deep wisdom, the ancient wisdom that yoga really is. So I really appreciate that. And that coupled with what you're doing with this dance class, it's kind of feeding both ends of the spectrum where it's like, it's all about how do we access the connection, mind, body, and soul, and put it into alignment on a daily basis. And that's what I love about these two extremes of what you're teaching. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you, Liz. I'm deeply passionate about it. And like I said, because it makes it's something I love. So I want to share it with the world.
Yeah. So when you think about this podcast name, Came Here to Love, what does that evoke in you? What does that mean to you?
The first thing I would say is it just got me so excited to recognize that that's why I'm here, and just to be able to have a conversation around what that means to me. It was a deep permission. It was a deep coming home, sort of what that title is for me.
I love that.
Because I think we all did come here to love, to experience love in a human body. And that's simple. It's not simple to do, but it's a simple knowing. It's a simple knowing.
And it's back to our innate self, It's like coming home, as you said. I love that. I love that you said that.
Yeah, it just takes the fight out of it all, too.
Yeah. And it's funny because it takes me back to a moment you and I were together this summer, and we got into a taxi. Little did we know what we were in for, but this reminds me of Came Here to Love, because so we're in Aspen, Colorado, which if you haven't been, you have to put that on your list of to-dos. But Aspen is so charming. And so we got out of dinner, we were with some friends, and one of our friends was like, fan down this taxi, and we get into it.
I see you driving up.
I'm really impressed by this situation. Oh, look, oh my God, I love this.
It was hilarious. But for the next, how long were we in there?
I mean, a half hour at least.
Yeah.
And I never wanted it to end.
So this guy has converted an old cab, and he has decked it out. I call it source energy, but he has like vibrationally decked out this with all lights and music and instruments inside. So he's driving the taxi while playing keyboards. And what else was he playing?
And the sax and the drum. And like you go on literally a ride. I mean, part of the magic was I had no idea what to expect. So I was in wonderment and just so delighted, like literally the energy of a child.
That's what that's why I loved it. That's what it reminds me of Came Here to Love, because it was literally this guy, super creative genius that he put this together. But he's like, how can I evoke a feeling and an experience and just shock people into love and into joy? I felt like it was a joyride. Literally, it was the definition of a joyride. And at one point, we won't spoil it in case you go do it, but you have to. What's the company called?
It's called the Ultimate Taxi.
Ultimate Taxi.
He's the company.
Yeah,
and
he's the company.
Book him. I recently actually after doing that, I booked him and took my mom and my mom's girlfriend, and just it is a joyride. That we'll just leave it at that. But it was fabulous.
Yeah, I got to bring him on this podcast because he's so awesome.
You do.
He is so awesome.
Yes.
So, if you could convey, you've had a beautiful life, and maybe take us through a little bit of the parts of your life that you want to share. But if you could go back in time at any point in time and convey a message to your younger self, is there something that you wish you could have had, this little nugget of information at any point in your life?
Absolutely. I love that question that I just love this question. And it's really clear for me right now. It was probably a different answer 10 years ago, but right now it's like I would 100% be a little fairy godmother over my younger self and say, hey, you cannot do it wrong. Like no matter what you choose, whether it is in alignment with your heart or whether it is not, this is your curriculum to return to love over and over and over and over again. And so that is the point of you incarnating to express love through the vibration that is yours. And so no matter what, little Jayne, you can't make a wrong choice. And, I still have to tell myself that even today, as I'm trying to make these big decisions that are so important, I have to find my breath and my pause. And remember, I can't make a wrong choice. I can make a choice that will create a different experience or a different texture of love, but it is all a return to love in the form of grief sometimes, but it's still love.
Yeah.
And who am I to have an opinion about what kind of love I like better? Like that feels pretty arrogant.
Yeah. Well, that's not true love, right? When you're putting control or restriction around it, it's a different thing. So,
and hopefully as we age, each of our lessons and experiences allow us to follow what is closer to the instinct of our heart. But even if it was not in alignment with my heart, you can't make a wrong choice.
I love that point because, and God, could you imagine if we all grew up knowing that?
I mean, could I imagine?
It would be amazing. I'm not sure, I have to really sit on what that journey would look like for me. We'll come back and do a second series on let's all reflect on that for a second. But
really just reflect for a minute, the listeners, on do you really believe that? Because you could get in your head around oh, well, let's just get really gnarly. If I got to play this out for a second. If I was in total fear or, fight or flight, and I was the one who murdered someone, blah, blah, blah. Is that a wrong choice? Right. It's not an appropriate behavior, of course, but was it a wrong choice for your soul's curriculum to return to love because you were so far from love?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So sometimes we got to just go to the end.
No, and it's honestly, it's so funny because the fact that I'm doing a podcast called Came Here to Love, it has been a really interesting journey in my own story. And I've been married and divorced twice. And honestly, there's no wrong choice. And it certainly was part of my curriculum. And I learned so much and I loved so beautifully in both of those marriages. And my soul's curriculum was not to stay in that. It was to keep evolving as where I needed to go and grow. But it's a hard reality to be like, damn, did I, make the right choice? And, all of those things if you get heady about it. But if you follow your heart and if you truly trust the process of life, then you do settle into that place of like, yeah, there really aren't wrong choices. Now, having said that, there's ways you can show up in situations. You can choose to be pissed and angry and hate, or you can choose to be in love and compassion, And so I think there's that part of the choice that you make, that it's also about how you show up in it, that really allows the experience to be part of the curriculum and a lesson and a teaching around, what we're here for. Yeah.
Yeah. That trust in life. It's something I have to work with daily, even though I do trust. There are lots of scenarios that my cute, sweet human self doesn't. So anyway, I think that would really be the message.
Yeah.
Can't do it wrong.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to sit with that.
You can't do it wrong and you can't do it right. Like you're just going to do it.
It just is. Yeah, it just is.
Yeah.
So every day you get up and inspire so many people in your world and really at the world at large. I don't know if you really understand your impact or how bright your light is. But if you're listening to this episode right now, you can get a sense of that transmission. And you can also, if you're watching this episode, you can certainly see the light beam and the aura that's floating around this gorgeous goddess. But what I wanted to know, and for our listeners to know, is that, you're really in a space of inspiration and motivation. How do you gear up for that on a daily basis? What are some tips or practices that you kind of come into in your own daily alignment to be available for all of that you give to the world?
I'm an interesting one. And this, I'm one of those people who I do have routine and protocol, but it's not like as a script or a script or a prescription. And it does change. There are some fundamental things that I require for any sort of success or thriving. And one is nature. It is, sorry, the dog.
No, I love that.
Max has something to say.
Hi, Max.
It definitely, time in nature is such a big one for me. Just getting outside.
It's like a recalibration.
It's a recalibration is how I find energy. And my mornings are quiet. They are mine. I really try to give myself at least an hour or two in the day, even if it means if I have to leave my house at 8 a.m. to go teach. I really, I go to bed early. So that's part of it. I go to bed really early, but I give myself quiet space in the morning to be with the day so that, every day the sun comes up and every day the sun goes down so far.
Yeah.
And, with that rising of the sun is a new opportunity and new energy. And I really take that seriously.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I got from my greatest spiritual teachers is the morning has become my sacred time. And it is, I don't know what I would do without it. It literally has shifted my whole perception and how I move through the day. And
me too.
And it's
not always a meditation for me. Like some months I meditate, some months I don't. And I just love to share that with an audience because I'm thriving in some ways in my life and I'm not in others. Of course, that is my experience of it. But the reasons that I have pieces of my life that are thriving is because I do things that work for me and they're not always the same and they're not what somebody else does. And they're not, I'm not necessarily perfectly disciplined. They're in my life because they make my life better. So I would always, of course, do that. Does that make sense?
Of course. And I think that's so part of the human curriculum that we're dynamic beings. We are energy. And so sometimes routine in terms of a structured practice of saying, okay, I'm going to dedicate an hour in the morning to myself, to my practice. But then within that context of saying, okay, but I may journal for that hour. I may meditate. I may move my body. I may dance. I have this vibration bed that I'm obsessed with that I lay and do breath work on in the mornings a lot of times. Sometimes I'll get my infrared sauna. So I don't think there's a right or wrong to your point. It's like be the dynamic human that we are and flex and move in the way that we need to, but always in support of our higher selves. And I think that's the key, is that, it's not to say, okay, today my choice is going to be to turn on the TV or the news and watch an hour of, negative craziness to start the day. It's not to say that. It's more to say, what is in the best and highest good for my highest self.
Yep. And it's simple. And I just love to make sure to say that, because I want people to give themselves their own permission to know that they're doing the things, instead of that whole mind dialogue of like, oh, well, I didn't meditate today, or I'm not doing the things that are good for me. Well, let's actually focus on where you are doing the things that are good for you, and come alive with that. Like, let's go.
But also it's a relationship with yourself, right? So to punish yourself, I mean, if you put yourself as two people, right? And you're like the dictator and then the doer, it's like, you would never be mad at your child for not doing a meditation. Instead, you would be like, okay, sweetheart, well, what do you want to do instead? Like, let's find something. And so I think that dynamic relationship with self is a really important part of this, to say that, if you're tired, like I've given myself permission so many times to just lie in bed and listen to beautiful music, just to allow that. Like, I'm a baby waking up and it's like, what a nice, as opposed to like, shit, the alarm didn't go off, or I hit snooze too many times and now I'm late and I didn't do all the things I was supposed to do. It's like, no, why live like that? Give yourself the freedom. Yeah. So kind of to that point, then, you are this public servant, you're a leader, you're a genius, but how do you also then protect your boundaries? Like, do you do anything to make sure you're not overextending? Because I certainly know when I was teaching more, it was a really interesting dance between giving, because I love to overgive, right? So how much do I deplete myself before I replenish? And that was kind of a hard trick for me. Do you have boundaries that you have to consciously set?
Very strong boundaries around that. I mean, it was a process to come to them. I didn't like set them and then like they just worked. I had to teach too much to set them.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a time I was teaching too much. I didn't necessarily know it, but I realized there would be times that I was like, I can't teach tonight. Like, I have nothing to give. And I actually I would find a sub, or I would, because I have a deep commitment to showing up fully. And, and it wasn't because of the context or content of my life. It was my energy. And now I'm pretty clear. Like, I kind of have found the sweet spot, and it's not a lot. Like, 4 classes for me a week, for me to really come and give it. I'm talking 2 yogas and 2 body alives.
That's your sweet spot.
That's my sweet spot.
Yeah. And I think that what you just said, so part of being in the beingness of love, not, love is a verb. It's to acknowledge, how can I show up fully alive? Like, I love that you just said that, because that's the whole point. It's like, I feel like we're in this depleted state. A lot of humanity right now is going through this depletion of just running from one thing to the next and doing everything maybe mediocre. Maybe every once in a while you would hit a A grade, but then most of it, it's kind of like you're just in the C range, just trying to survive. And I love what you just said. If you could maybe take us deeper into what you mean by that, you fully are there, present and alive when you give of yourself, because I feel that. And that's what I think is different about what you're doing versus, someone else.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say beyond, it's this beautiful gift. Like, I have such a reverence for getting to teach, not having to teach, because what I get to do is walk into a room and I have to hold myself accountable for like the shit that I think is true, that's putting me down or whatever it is. Like, I got to get over myself, and I get to show up in the present moment to fortify my mind and my heart and my soul on the things that are positive. So I literally look to what I do as such a gift to me.
Yeah.
And that mentality is a really big deal. I mean, this is on that vein, I also, for a long time, and I still do this a lot, especially when I get overwhelmed, I like wake up and I I write down, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but like the rocks, the sand, and the water.
Yeah, I love it.
I actually do that. And Marisa, my old roommate, she used to look at my papers and she would laugh. And she was like, from 8:30 to 9:30, you're drinking coffee. From 8 to 8:30, you're drinking coffee. Like I would really write down the rocks of what I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
And then the sand and the water that would fill in became the way life would just show up for me. But those rocks, it was coffee from 8 to 8:30. It was driving from here to there and listening to nothing or making a phone call. Anyway, to be really organized about what I needed to get done and helps me.
Well, and I think that one of the greatest gifts that you give without maybe even knowing it is you have this sense of self. You have a deep awareness around what Jayne needs to operate at a high vibrational frequency. And that to me, that's love of self, that you've figured out the formula. You've taken enough time with yourself to say, like, how do you want to move? How does it feel good to be out in the world? What's your purpose? What is a greater expression of yourself? And how do I need to restore? And all of the things, that I think that you're one of very few that really have taken the time to dial that in so that you can be fully functional and fully alive in what you're doing.
Well, thanks for saying that, Liz. And I'll just say too, part of that was because life forced me, right? Like all the people I loved left or whatever. So I had to sit with myself. And instead of sitting myself in misery, I just decided to inquire within.
Yeah.
That's a big.
Why does it always take a suffering for us to get there? My God, it's like, can't we just come in and realize that that's what the path is and not have to do all the dark work?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
No, we have to overcome the shadows to be able to get to the good stuff. But it is funny how it's like back to your younger self, like there are no bad choices or decisions. It's like,
Yeah, and I really try hard not to make it anybody else's. Like I don't really set a lot of boundaries. I just have them. Does that make sense?
Of course.
That's really important to me too. I just operate that way.
But I think there's a dialogue. That's what I was, I guess, getting at, is that it's not so strict as like, okay, I'm putting my fence here and this is my boundary. But you flow in such a beautiful way through your life that there are invisible boundaries to protect yourself, to uphold yourself to the higher version of yourself. And that
very much so
is part of your practice that you've really honed in on. And I love that. And I encourage all of the listeners to really adapt to that way of being through life, because it's first of all, it takes the tension down. It's not like you're so rigid and harsh and protective or even in fear, but you're operating from that vibrational force of love that we're talking about in this podcast. And through that, it's love of yourself. It's love for everyone else. It's love for the world. And that has to operate with some boundaries around it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said that really well.
No, I think it's so great. So I want to know, maybe your life has just been purely bliss. I know mine certainly has not, but have there been any significant moments that have really shaped your life that you want to take us through or share what came out of those?
There have been many significant moments, and the way that I have shaped my life has been not so much that an outside thing happened and so I took a left turn. There's one moment I can kind of think of like that, but it's been more like what works for me, and like that is how I've really shaped my life. Like, and does this still work today? And the fact that like even in a relationship recently, I've been really, which is a pretty profound part of my being.
Yeah.
What worked 4 weeks ago, brilliantly, I'm giving myself the permission to it doesn't work anymore. And then to communicate that, not with resentment or judgment, but to really own that it did. So I wasn't the victim of my life.
Yeah.
But to then speak to, and this is true now. And I've really followed my way that way from the things that have shaped my life is my businesses. I've had the children's theater company that was really extraordinary and took a ton of my energy, but gave me a ton. And then this yoga studio and who knows what's coming. But my commitment, so I guess my biggest thing is my commitment to this fully alive living has been my biggest thing that has shaped my life, because when I'm out of alignment, I literally wither, and that doesn't feel like the truth of who I am. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it's literally there's two things that come up for me as you're saying this. One, okay, so there's innate wisdom that you've tapped into. That's beautiful because there's just a steep sense of trust. It's almost like you're in a river, right? And you're going with the current as opposed to fighting the current, and you're in the flow. And so it's like, okay, when rapids come, you prepare for the rapids, you get a little bit more alert, and you go through the rapids with more awareness and maybe more sensitivity. And then when the smooth parts come, it's like, okay, now you can just embrace the sunshine and and just be in the flow of that river. That's what your description just reminded me of. And it also, like, I never put this together. I'm shocked that I never did. Okay. I'm for sure including
Can't wait
a
to hear.
picture of this experience because you are the taxi that we were in. You are literally that taxi. And why I'm saying that to all of you guys wondering what I mean by that, this taxi had so much joy radiating inside of it. And it was on a path, but it was always authentically joyful inside. And I feel like that's you. I mean, I just feel like that's how you go through life. It's pretty fucking awesome.
I mean, in some ways I do. I do not always feel joyful by any means.
No, of course.
But I try really hard to follow the truth of my heart, which is joy and is love. It's like we're talking about like a resonance here and like a musical score, not a conscious choice, right?
Yeah.
And those rapids have been real. I mean, those rapids,
of course.
But if I can find a little bit, an essence of joy within the rapids, then I have my guidance.
And you also, it seems that you always return to your heart.
Yeah, I think I have. And it's confrontive to my family, and it's confrontive to people that I love. So it's not easy, but I have described it like I wouldn't exist without that. Yeah. I couldn't. It would I would disintegrate.
Yeah, totally.
Weird as that sounds.
Totally. No. How do you find calm?
The first answer that comes to me would be in movement. It's not all that true anymore, but movement really brought me a lot of calm. Again, nature, but dance, yoga, not being in my head, in a place where I can surrender to the present moment is what brings me calm. Now I can sit in stillness and right, and walk on a beach and just be with a friend. But it didn't start out that way.
That's a really good point, because the entry into yoga, in particular, when you meet someone like Jayne, with the way that she and Shakti Aspen are doing such a remarkable job of really teaching powerful classes, yoga can be a very good entry point into getting out of the mind. So a lot of people struggle with stillness, right? A lot of people struggle with meditation. And so this could be an invitation to maybe explore more of a movement modality at first, to quiet the mind, to get it deeper into your body and access your soul. And then over the course of time, I love that you just said that, because it's true. It's like, okay, stillness can come once you've worked out the chaotic energy that needs to leave the physical form of our bodies. Yes. Then we can come into stillness. Love it.
And like deeper calm to me is that practice of learning how to redirect the mind, which I've used the breath. I always love to tell students that work with me, like, I'm not telling you to focus on your breath because the breath is so profound. It is, but I'm not asking you to find wisdom in the breath. That will come. What I'm asking you to do is I'm using the breath as a tool to ask your mind to focus on what you're asking it to focus on, so that when you're out in the world and you're having a thought that is not supportive to your nervous system, you can redirect the mind. You've literally learned to focus the mind. And the breath is a simple tool for that. So I have a lot of confidence and calm knowing that my mind is not the dictator of truth.
Amen. Mic drop.
Even though it thinks it is.
Even though there's a battle sometimes with that. But But actually, the way that I've kind of shifted my perspective in the last several years, which has been really fascinating, and it's a lot of the work that I'm teaching now. But so we have let's just kind of categorize two parts. So we have our ego self, which is more the mind, and then we have our souls. And it's been really interesting. I started doing this a couple years ago, but I have a name for my soul, and it was given through a
Oh, tell me what it is.
psilocybin therapy. It was really interesting, but it's Ray, Raye, after the sun, and it was really about becoming the sun, the light of the sun, as bright as the sun, and that's when you own your power. And so, anyways, I'll talk more about that at a different time. But where I was going with this is that I started doing this a couple years ago because it was Ray, I was like, okay, every Wednesday, I'm going to have it be Ray's day. And I'm going to only move through my day from my soul. And so this was fascinating. I'll tell this quick story, but so I went on a hike with Liz, my ego, and Ray, my soul. And we were in the forest, and I was only going as Ray. So I thought, and I'm very active. I've been active my whole life. I love being active. And I got in the forest and I got so tired. And I was like, to the point where I wanted to just sit down on a rock. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, are you getting sick? Da, 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 da. And then I remembered the exercise. And so I said, okay, Ray, what's going on? And Ray's voice came in and said, I don't want to do anything. I just want to be still. And I was like, what the hell does that even mean? I was in this really big process of, well, we're on a hike. I felt like I was with a kid dragging him along, and it got louder and louder. And so I was like, okay, well, do you want to lay in this meadow? And Ray answered and said, actually, I want to know a place in my home that I can be in stillness and really just let go. And so I ended up turning around. I mean, it was really interesting. It was 20-minute hike. Yeah, 20-minute hike. I got back in the car. I came home and I literally listened to Ray, and I ended up laying outside on my patio and completely transformed the space into Ray's space so that I could go there every day and retreat. And so I laid there that day for probably an hour, just listening to the birds and the wind and feeling the sun. And it was like crazy how energized I got. And then the rest of the day was just this remarkable experience with Ray leading the way. And so I started doing that every single Wednesday for years. And it was this dance between how can you operate from your personality side, and then how can you really honor your soul? And what it brings me back to, and what we're talking about, I invite everyone to go take their soul side, name it if you want, go take your soul side to yoga. It's a beautiful process to be in a
do that. I can't
yoga class.
Wait.
Yeah.
That's just so cool. I love that.
And it's rich. It's a really
exercise. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Well, it reminds me of how I feel like you show up anyways. And I'm certainly in the back cheering you on, going, okay, Ray's here today.
Thank you. I am fairly soul centered in that way for some reason.
But you drop in once I think that's the gift of a teacher, is when you're really an embodied teacher, you drop in and you take us on a journey.
It is such a privilege. It's not always easy, but it is a privilege.
No, it is. It is. And to be, in this beautiful body that you can move and flow the way you want to. So tell me when your life feels most meaningful.
When my mind, body, spirit are aligned in alignment with my soul, to me. And when I'm doing work I love, when I have access to nature, and when I'm surrounded by others who see me, there's something in there. And that, maybe someday that won't be necessary, but it helps me. It helps me to see myself. It helps me to put down my sword when others see me.
I've been in your home, and I'm watching you in that space. How does your home make you feel?
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does. I've put a lot of intentionality into my home. And I love that question, Liz, because the studio is also extraordinarily beautiful. And
Mm.
it's very intentional because it's important for me to share. I recognize that the journey within and the journey of truth and the journey of true love is not always pretty. And
Mhm.
it is brave and it is messy and it doesn't look like I would ever have written or chosen it to look. And
Mhm.
so I decided that if I was committed to that journey, and this wasn't, again, a conscious decision, I just am,
Yeah.
that my surroundings and my environment in which I was going to traverse that journey of maybe demonic and ugliness, who knows
Mhm.
what I would find and what I will find. It had to be beautiful. I had to feel safe, and it had to be a place where I felt like I could be in that journey. So
It's such a reflection of your true self, just being in your space. It's like I'm inside your soul, and it feels really good. And I think that, I've been doing some design work in Colorado and Mexico, and what I love creating, which I didn't really realize I was doing this all my life, but I create lighthouses, and I'm really claiming them as such because every time I actually just did this ceremony on my father last night with sound bowls and candlelit sound bowl meditation on my living room last night. And he was just like, wow, this is such a crazy experience. And I think that our homes are really that. They're a reflection of the light that we hold within. And you have that expressed in such a graceful, calming, but energizing, like vibrant way that I just wanted to acknowledge that because I think your designs are such a reflection of you and such a beautiful reflection of love, really.
thank you. And I will say to the audience, like, my living room isn't even fully furnished, by the way. Like, it's not like it's all packaged perfectly, but the way that
No.
it exists in my space and the space that I chose and the colors and um, it was really important to me that it would support me.
Yeah, and even if
That's
you don't have a home, like
right.
find a corner that you can call a sanctuary in your home because it's so important to have some
Your-
place that you can drop in. Yeah.
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 Environment's a big deal.
Huge. And just how we sleep and move and all of it. So,
Yeah.
what do you feel like the world needs more of right now?
Oh, well, how could I not say love? How could I not say love? But I love that quote, and I work with it a lot. Like, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do that, because the world needs more people who have come alive. And
Mm,
I really operate, that's a Howard Thurman quote. I really am like, I believe we all incarnated for a reason, and it is
mhm.
our work to figure out what that reason is and allow it to evolve and then give it as generously as we possibly can because the world needs it. And if we all do that and we all get out of our own way, there will be nothing to fight over,
Yeah. Yeah.
in my opinion. So, love and aliveness, they're very good friends.
Wow. They kind of, it's like one and the other, right?
They dance together.
It's
Yes.
like, yeah, it's like you and me, babe.
It's like you and me, babe.
But it's so true. And that was the premise of wanting to do this show. It's really more of a movement of like, let's ride that wave of love because it's a vibrational energy. We're all energy. We have the choice to connect to it. And when we're fully in that vibrational expression of love, where it's like we're not asking anything of it. We're just being in love as a verb, as a way of being, as a way of living. Yeah, we are one. And it does take us to the alive place that you're talking about. Our heart's wide open and we're able to flow.
And as a really tangible answer, I think the world needs more self-inquiry. That's what I really think, because that has been my gateway. Self-inquiry, for
Yeah.
whether it was gifted to me or slapped down in front of me. To me,
Is there anything that would help our audience just tap into like maybe one aspect of what you mean by self-inquiry?
Yeah, I mean, even just work related, I used to always like, if I didn't feel that connection to work, or if I started to dread work, and I don't mean dread the drive. I do dread the drive sometimes. But I mean, really the act of what I'm doing.
Mhm.
I had to find my why. I had to go in and be like, why do I do the things I do?
Mm.
And, career is a really kind of like tangible one. Why do I eat what I eat?
Yeah.
Why do I speak with the cadence that I do to my parents? Like the why of, it's the fire behind everything.
Yeah. And it brings you into that awareness of the present moment when you can start to do that self-inquiry, because it again, it separates you from yourself. So you can look as the observer in a lens of awareness and go, why is this happening? Why is one of the most profound questions.
Question our thoughts,
Yeah.
question our actions.
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't take a meditation practice. You can be in the car,
Totally.
becoming aware.
Yeah.
So big.
It's so big. So you can fill in these blanks. So I feel whole when.
I feel whole when I'm teaching Body Alive. We'll go with that. I do.
I agree with that. I think wholeness is like a point of access to a portal, right? So it's like, what can you do in your life to tap into wholeness? Again, it kind of goes hand in hand with alive.
Yeah.
Because when you're alive, you're whole, and when you're whole, you're alive. Like if you're truly in those two, they kind of overlap. Yeah.
I don't feel whole all that often, like really whole.
Yeah.
Thing I really want to place more attention on.
Yeah. And I think that's a great reminder for everyone out there. Like wholeness can come and go as we're doing the dance of our curriculum and learning ourselves and self-inquiry more and more. But to Jayne's point, when you have just something in your life that you can say, God, I feel so alive and so whole and so in love, like those three, that would be, I mean, my God, then you start trying to align with that more and more and more, or more of those things. And then all of a sudden you transform your life and you don't even realize. It's amazing. Yeah. And then complete the sentence, I am.
In this moment, I am bright is what came forward.
Yes, you are.
I am divine.
Yes, you are.
We all are.
You're such a teacher, though. You're such a magnetic force. I mean, I remember the first time we met, it was like, I remember actually being in a room with you and I was like, wow, like this thing it's so lit up. It was so fun. It was so fun. And then I was like, I got to turn up hold on, where's my light switch? It was so fun. And then finish this sentence. Love is
freedom. Love is truth. Love is everywhere and all around.
Can't say it better than that.
Yeah. And it's something that it's like, that needs to go on my refrigerator.
Will you remember?
I mean, I just was having a conversation with my parents recently, and it was so interesting. Like when I remembered that love is everywhere and all around, and that they were coming from love, we're having a completely different conversation when I forget that. When I forget that, the same words come out as an attack. They
of course.
As like literally opening my wounds and pouring salt. But if I can put my own shit aside and recognize that love is everywhere, then it's a completely different conversation.
It's such a great trick to actually say that to yourself before you're having difficult conversations, before you walk into an agreement or a conversation, before you walk into your child's room that you're very upset with, before you have that hard conversation with your partner. It's a really important thing. Like love is all around. It's amazing. I love that you said that.
Love is all around. I'm literally going to put that on my fridge. I want all the art in my house to reflect that and remind me.
Yeah. That's it. Well, you have been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. And there's going to be a lot more to come.
Yeah, there is. I love working with you, Liz, and there's going to be a lot more to come. I'm really committed to 1 + 1 equaling 11
a billion
trillion with a lot of $11
billion.
Yeah.
everyone, go check out where Jayne is. She, like I said, she's moving about the world right now, which is amazing. She's based in Aspen, Colorado. She has a gorgeous studio there. We're going to be collaborating, so watch out for some of those announcements and just support this light being and go get filled by her gracious teachings, because it really is a gift. And yeah, thanks for listening today to Came Here to Love, and we will see you next week.
Yeah. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everybody. Blessings.
Take care. And in the meantime, go out and tell someone you love.
Thank you for joining us on Came Here to Love. I hope today's conversation has inspired you to live more fully, align with your soul, and spread more love in the world. Remember, love is the highest vibration, and when we lead with it, we elevate not just our own lives, but the lives of those around us. If today's episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who could use a little more love in their life. And as always, keep tuning in for more heart-centered conversations that remind us all why we are here to love. Until next time, keep living your light and loving with your whole heart.